When Germany invaded Poland, it triggered World War II. When Trump invaded Venezuela, it shattered the international systems of justice and the diplomatic relationships that had lasted since 1945. It's that dramatic, and I'm going to explain to you why that is and what the implications are, and I'm going to give you a number of different perspectives so that you can see this from multiple angles and understand it. It sounds complex, but the way I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make it crystal clear for you. I'm going to really make this simple. I'm going to make something that's incredibly complex simple. And how I'm going to do that is to break it down into pieces. I'm going to give you the big picture first and then show you how all the pieces fit one by one until we get down so we can explain everything that everybody's struggling with and giving you little pieces and saying, oh, the truth about Venezuela is, and it's something that's, no, it's a tiny little piece of what's going on and they're missing 90% of what's happening. Most people, I think, the repercussions of what's going on, it's mind-blowing because it's so wide, because it's so far-reaching. This is a watershed moment as big as Germany invading Poland in 1939. It's as big as that. And there's all sorts of little things in there. I'm going to give you a juicy piece of the puzzle that I haven't heard anybody else say. And if they have, good on you, you beat me to it. This is about purging the military. And why do they want to purge the military? Because this is the road to dictatorship. This is a key pillar in taking the government over. So let's take 3 steps back. Why am I saying this? And I'm going to tell you how that works, all right? Bear with me. But I'm going to put this in the frame it really should be, because Venezuela is just one aspect of a bigger frame. This is how you get out of getting caught up in the, in the tidal pools of the different media. Just everybody's spinning up all sorts of different red herrings everywhere. Take 3 steps back and let's look at what this really is. The Trump regime has been pushing for an authoritarian regime for a long time. They are systematically dismantling the democracy. The objective is absolute power. And there are a number of different ways that they're doing this. They're weakening, like they're using the Supreme Court. They hold both houses of the Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And just think about, why are they doing all this? And I'll tell you, there is a minority set of groups of people that have their own agendas. The main reason for Venezuela is to advance the authoritarian agenda. It's about authoritarian consolidation. Okay, big word. What it means is they don't want to have a dictatorship, and they're tearing down the things that are in their road. They're removing the obstacles to absolute power. Dismantle democracy. That is their objective. Their objective is to dismantle democracy. They are anti-democratic, and they want to replace democracy with some sort of rule that they control, so a minority can determine everything. It's kind of like, think about becoming something like North Korea, only in its own flavor. North Korea has its own flavor, but it would be a US version. That's what's driving this. And let's have a look. Why do you want to purge the military? And how would you do it? If you look at Project 2025, they have systematically removed people that were supporting the Constitution. So if you look at the FBI and Kash Patel, they've systematically removed all the leadership and replaced them with MAGA people. So so when you hear the deep state, they actually mean the MAGA state. See, they've swapped everything around. There were people that were loyal to the Constitution, and now they're not. They're loyal to MAGA and Donald Trump. They were hand-selected. Russell Vought and the Heritage Foundation systematically vetted thousands of people, and they've systematically put them into positions of authority within the government. And so you talk about the Department of Justice. Talk about, say, immigration judges who are administrative judges that are appointed by the Department of Justice. Why am I telling you this? I'm trying to get a picture to you that this is a very well laid out, highly orchestrated and meticulously laid out plan. A plan to take over the US government and turn it into a dictatorship. It's as simple as that. That is the objective. See everything through that lens, that the elites that rule MAGA, that feed them talking points with a massive machinery. We're talking thousands of people, hundreds of organizations, all dedicated to tearing the democracy down and putting a dictatorship in its place, removing democracy forever. They might keep elections so it looks like a democracy exists. It might be like the Viktor Orban model, where you take all the media over and then what you do is you control the elections in such a way that there's only one result that's going to happen. And that's what happens in Russia. That's what happens in Turkey. That's what happens in Poland. Nothing new. But the US is bigger than them and more complex, and there's a lot more machinery. So it's not so easy to just flip the US and make it instantly a dictatorship. Because, let's face it, how many millions of people on the No Kings Day or the No Kings Rally, how many people came out? I mean, there were millions of people. Was it something like, 7 million? Or it was some huge number. It was a record number of people. But of course, that's just an expression of people objecting. The reality is that this is some kind of civil war, but it's not a traditional one. It's not like the ones where you had the Union and the Confederates and you used muskets and troops, sabres and horses and cannons and cannonballs. This is a technical age. This is a technical civil war. It's a warm civil war because they do have ICE who can be used as a kind of paramilitary. They can be used as a secret police force. They break all the rules, and even though the rules say they're not supposed to do it, like Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, First Amendment, those rights that were perceived before were protected by the Department of Justice, by the FBI, by the courts. But the Department of Justice is now the MAGA Justice Department. The FBI is now the MAGA Bureau of Investigation. And then, of course, there is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court as the end point to all appeals means that they effectively can interpret the Constitution any way they like. And they have, and they will. You have to understand, it is the MAGA Supreme Court now. They have full control over how the Constitution is interpreted. All parts of the government are now under control by MAGA, by the MAGA elite. There's a MAGA elite network. And these are billionaires, many of them. But anyway, I digress. They've captured the Department of Justice. They've captured the FBI. They've captured the Supreme Court. They hold the presidency, and they hold the Senate, and they hold the House of Representatives. And so think about how you would purge the military. Why is that important? The question is, why is the US not completely and totally now a consolidated dictatorship or authoritarian regime, however you want to label it? We can get down into the weeds, but let's just call it a dictatorship because everybody knows what that is. And is there more nuance to this? Yes, a lot. But it's not going to make this story much, it's not going to help us in this part of the story. So if you purged the DOJ, Department of Justice, and the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, if you've done that and you now own those, and you have MAGA loyalists who will do whatever Trump says, irrespective of anything else, they will override the Constitution. The military purge is vital to understanding the next key step towards establishing a dictatorship and dismantling the US Constitution and dismantling the system of democracy forever in the United States. With the military, the key thing to keep in your mind is if they've taken the Department of Justice and they've taken the FBI, they are two pinnacle organizations within the government because they have law enforcement, so they have real physical power. The other is ICE, that's operating like a paramilitary. But if they tried to do a crackdown with just that, And if you watched at Quantico when Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump addressed a room full of about 800 of the most senior officers in the US military, most of the people in that room maintained their countenance, which tended to indicate that they may well be very resistant to the idea of pledging an oath of allegiance to Donald Trump and betraying the US Constitution, because they take that very seriously. And so a key pillar to establishing a